Hello everyone, my name is Courtney Olson and I am presenting on my study for Dustin Nadler's Psychology 358 Psychological Tests and Measurements class. For our class we were asked to pick a personality construct to measure and analyze, and for my construct I chose to do openness to experience from the Big Five. Now I chose openness because I feel like it is one of the most important aspects of people's everyday lives. It's not always thought about, but it is important because it regards how we go about everything we do and our comfort with it, whether it is familiar or estranged from us. From the literature I found, there are a few levels to openness that are often looked at when defining what this trait is characterized as, and many of them are similar and overlapping. So with the literature I found, Sharp et al. Study in 2019 considers the construct as varying levels of intellectual flexibility, curiosity, and feelings towards engagement in activities. Kemp et al. Study in 2019 defines it as an individual's willingness to consider and explore unfamiliar or unconventional ideas, feelings, and activities. Beatty et al. Study in 2018 characterizes openness as the tendency to engage in imaginative, creative, and abstract cognitive processes. Rasmussen and Berntsen in 2010 discuss openness being related to exploring fantasies and emotions, so more of the daydreaming aspect side of it. Chen et al. Study in 2018 characterizes openness as exhibiting behaviors of contemplating new perspectives and engaging in the reflection and perception of beauty. So that one is kind of more in so of the aesthetic pleasure of openness. From this literature, I have come up with my own definition of openness as an individual's desire to engage in unfamiliar experiences, which is commonly used in these studies. Additionally, I also define openness as consideration of unfamiliar perceptions and familiarity with comfort with imagination and creativity. Although these concepts are not commonly used in the research I found, I believe that responses from individuals can address unique traits related to openness that are not as commonly observed. So when I was making my test items, I wanted to focus on questions related to an individual's comfort with changes in the unknown. I wanted to ask things that address their responses to situations that are unexpected occurrences that still happen in everyday life. Examples of questions related to comfort with the unknown and changes are: I enjoy engaging in new activities, I am open to changing the traditions I have been raised with, and I am flexible when it comes to accommodating other people. In addition, I wanted to ask questions that related to an individual's tendency to fantasize and daydream. I wanted to ask these questions to understand what someone has to say about their own habits of using their imagination in terms of putting themselves into situations unique to what is normal to them and to us. Example of questions related to daydreaming are: I often find myself daydreaming, and I often find myself focusing on the fantasies I have created for myself rather than real life. All respondents were asked at the beginning of the questions to rate how much they agree with the statements on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being strongly disagree, 2 being disagree, 3 being neither agree nor disagree, 4 being agree, and 5 being strongly agree. I decided after my initial creation of questions, which I will talk about in a few moments, to reverse code some questions to avoid respondents giving answers based on the survey format, like trying to appear more open by only selecting higher numbers. These questions were also scaled the same as the others were, but opposite when analyzed. The questions were created in reverse coding where I feel uncomfortable when new ideas are brought up, I avoid being around people who are unlike me, I get upset when things don't go according to plan, I get anxious when I am in a new environment, I tend to order the same things when I go out to eat, and also I am hesitant to explore unfamiliar areas. So initially, my pilot test did not have any reverse-coded items and only contained 10 questions. I wasn't totally sure on if my questions were going the right direction, really reflecting on openness, so I didn't want to create a lot if they were getting too far off the mark. Upon receiving feedback from my peers and professor on my initial questions, I was told that more questions were desirable for a more accurate reading of openness to experience among individuals. I added more questions, made some reverse coded, and I tried to include more relating to everyday life because I believe that asking questions people are familiar with would encourage them to give a more truthful response and be more thoughtful of their own behaviors rather than these theoreticals. So for my pilot test result, my survey was posted to discussion boards and social media. All of my respondents were classmates and social media followers. I did ask some friends to respond, so I for sure would get a higher number. And actually, because of this, I think that some of my demographics were skewed and not as diverse as I would like them to be. I ended up getting 19 respondents in total, ages from 19 to 53. I had 7 males and 12 females. And I only had one person classify as other with their race, and I had all 18 as Caucasians. So this is where I kind of did not get the diversity I wanted. I only ended up having basically a Caucasian sample and only one person that stood out from that. My descriptive statistics of my collection were a minimum score of 3.15, a maximum score of 4.45, a mean of 3.68, and a standard deviation of 0.376. So this means that my average people ended up being, the average openness score with people means that they were kind of more towards the middle, if not a little bit higher. So for reliability and validity, I used an independent samples t-test to compare scores between males and females. I found that there was not a significant difference found between males and females, with the male mean being 3.66 and the female's mean being 3.69. The p-value for these were 0.901, so it was not low enough for there to be a significance. I used a Pearson correlation for age, and I did not find a significant relationship between age and openness to experience as well. The p-value there was 0.243, and again, that was too high to be considered as significant. Validity, So I also used a one-way ANOVA when doing this. I wanted to compare the ethnicities of race and openness. However, my sample was actually not diverse enough to do this, so I was not able to get an accurate one-way ANOVA of this. I didn't even have any post hoc tests because I didn't have 3 groups. There was a significant difference found, of course, being the p-value is 0.031, and that was only because we compared really one person to the rest of my sample. So this one-way ANOVA really wasn't anything that was able to give me a good reading on reliability. When it comes to validity, I ended up getting face validity from my peers. Whenever they first initially looked at my description of openness, they could see and they could tell with my initial questions that openness is what I was researching. They could tell from the questions what it was. I got content validity from the literature provided because I was able to get my definition derived from definitions of other people and studies that were, of course, validated. And criterion validity would have been from further studies on useful things like openness to experience projected onto other things, like if people go on vacation more, things like that. So whenever I did my factor analysis, I ended up doing one to detect factors that account for significant variance. I, of course, only expected there to be like 1 or 2 factors when doing this. Whenever I was creating my questions, I really wasn't going for multiple factors. I really was only looking at one. Of course, this is not what happened. I ended up actually getting 6 factors after I examined my scree plot, total variances, explained table, and rotated factor matrix table. My 6 factors were emotions, fantasizing, anxiety with change, eagerness with change, comfort, and flexibility. And all of these factors accounted for 70.083% of my total variance. So strengths of my study were that it was an online survey. It was efficient. I was able to put it out there and get adequate responses. It was a short survey. It only took about 2 minutes, being only 20 questions. So people taking the survey didn't feel rushed or answer unaccordingly because they wanted to get it done with. It was also cost efficient. So this was free for me to make. It didn't cost me anything to put it out there. The way I went about it was very efficient for me with the cost. Weaknesses about my study were convenient sampling was causing selection bias. So I probably, again, didn't get the most diverse sample I really would have wanted to. I actually really didn't. I had a really non-diverse sample when it came to race, only having the one person not being Caucasian. So that's definitely a weakness in my study, and I was not able to compare it adequately. So when it comes to future research, that's definitely something I would like to do, is get more respondents so that I would have a more diverse sample. Ideas for my future, other things are creating a longer survey for more power. Having it be so short is also something that was a weakness. It didn't get me to get enough information to adequately have a high power of someone's average openness. In the future, I also would like to create surveys to analyze specific dimensions of the construct strictly. Again, like what I can apply openness to in everyday life, like older people's rate of openness and things of the such. And in the future, I would also like to collect data on more personalized aspects of people, so compare openness to other constructs too, like the other big 5 personalities. So thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed, and thank you.